help support a vulnerable child to have the education they've always dreamed of, so they can build a brighter future. You'll be feeding a hungry stomach and a hungry mind with knowledge that will last them a lifetime. That's the power of an education. Sponsor an orphan now with Islamic Relief.
Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, everybody. This is your main man, Preacher Moss, host of the SOS Shout Out Show. Hope that you had a great weekend. I did, and I'm extending a lot of condolences to my Virginia family, University of Virginia family, with the death of the football players down there, 3 of them. Quite a tragedy. Also, want to give a shout out and recovery and mercy and best wishes sent to the people that are affected in Indonesia with the earthquake. And of course, want to give a shout out to those in Colorado Springs at the shooting at the I think it's Club Q, I believe its name. It doesn't matter if it's LGBTQ. Everybody's human beings. Shooting is a shooting. So we hope that the families and the victims are somehow they gather strength around this and have the ability to move forward. And those who have been taken from us through these tragedies, we hope that they receive the full complement of reward in the hereafter. Okay, brothers and sisters. So let me prime the pump a little bit for today's talk. Today's talk is not going to be one of these rah-rah talks. It's funny because I'm going to give you guys a little bit of, I call it a little secret sauce. And the secret sauce about understanding how you revisit joy and why we should laugh more. This secret sauce has been given to me. And sometimes given to me, and then it's been reminded that it was given to me. And sometimes I have to tie into it a lot more. And I can tell, and Sister Ree is on the show today. As always, Ree, thank you so much. It's going to be good eating after the show, brothers and sisters. So if I do the whole 30 minutes, alhamdulillah. So let me break this whole thing down to you about revisiting joy. Some time ago, I want to say in 2004, a conversation was had with my good friend, mentor, and big brother, Reginald Kitchen. And we began a discussion talking about how people don't understand the nuances and the little things in life. They add up to the sum of joy. Now, this is not preachy or anything like this. What I'm trying to say is, because a lot of times we look at a large picture, we don't understand that it's separate strokes, separate decisions that are made to make a picture the way it is. When you do humor, there are certain things that you say, there are certain words that you put in a strategy, if you will, or in a combination of organizational words to make sure that a thought is relayed. And what we have come to understand through so many things, I'm not going to talk about slavery, racism, that I'm just talking about your day-to-day leveling up of joy, things that make us laugh. You'll find that the things that take away from your joy a lot of times don't come from within you. And I think today I want to talk about that aspect of it not coming from within you and being able to create, I want to say, a modality where you can look at these things and understand they're not coming from you, they're coming towards you. And in that space, create, if you will, create a little bit of distance and understanding that these things will dissipate. Like a lot of people don't understand other people's problems over a period will dissipate. They may be around you, but they're not your problems. They're not for you to necessarily own. For me, being a humorist or a comedian or a writer, whatever, the beautiful part is, we take everything in. And sometimes some of us who are not comedians, sometimes we take everything in and we can get overloaded. We can become the problem in and of itself, not because the problem is ours, but we take it upon ourselves to believe that we have to solve the problem. Some of the happiest people you're gonna meet in your life are elders. You know why? Because elders over a period of time have developed a systematic way to deal with life, to deal with their life, to deal with the lives around them. So today, I want to make sure that I take a little bit of a trip. We're going to share some narratives, some stories, some of them funny, some of them enlightening. But I think it's important, if you will, and if you allow me to do so, I think it's important that we begin to talk about a joy, flexing the joy muscle. Because that joy is a lot more than you laughing or smiling or having a good thing. Joy, brothers and sisters, is a very, very sophisticated execution, if you will. It's a very, very nuanced activity that you can do. Not everybody can pull out and have joy. It sounds simple, like, oh, somebody told a joke, or, oh, da, da. I'm going to actually break down to you how I do jokes, because I realize sometimes when I'm on stage, it's more than jokes for some people. People come with the expectation that I'm supposed to connect with them or connect in them that joy. And look at the circumstances and why I'm having to do it. I don't know the people. I don't know what they've been through during the day. They don't know me. I don't know the club. There's so many things that could go wrong. But all praises due, I've been able to have a serious formula algorithm that's worked for a lot of years in terms of being a comedian, a teacher, a writer, family man, son, all that stuff. It's allowed me to be all these things. So we're going to talk about it today here on the Shout Out Show. Don't go anywhere. We're starting up right now. All right, we're back. Before we get into today's topic, we want to make sure that we give the big shout outs to the Shout Out Show family, the Shout Out Show soldiers that are in the comment section. These are the people that make the show go well. And some of you need to know, it may be 10 or 5 people on the show, but you don't realize, man, people watch this show from here to Florida to New York to DC to overseas. And I've been blessed to have people go, hey, I like the Shout Out Show. I'm like, wait a minute. I'm in Australia. Wait a minute. I'm in the UK. And it ties into a lot of what we're going to talk about today is what that formula is. All right. So before we get started, let's go ahead and bring our people into the space. All right. Got to give a shout out to Mary Moss, better known as Mama Son. Thanks so much for the earlier conversation, Mom. I appreciate it. It's been a rough 2 months, but I appreciate your stewardship and leadership, making sure I'm on top of my game. Much blessings to you. Next up. Oh, man, Altaf Rashid, better known as Mr. 6 o'clock, straight up, straight down, a Canadian envoy to the show. How you doing, beloved? Wa alaikum assalam rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Always a pleasure to have you on the show. Thank you so much for participating. Next up, she's back in action, brothers and sisters, our craft services director, Reed, making sure that my dietary needs are met. Brother Derek was so nice to bring some food around to the house. God bless you. Appreciate you. And shout out to Brother Jawan. Thanks so much, Reed. Remember, every bite of food I take, you get a blessing. Look at Reed. Well, then chew a lot of food then. Okay. Appreciate you. Next up, my main man, Eric. Wa alaikum assalam rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Brother Eric Carter. Good to see you in the house, man. I hope everything is going well with you and your family. Always a pleasure to see you. Next up, big brother Bilal Salahuddin and his queen, Sister Sonia Dalton Salahuddin. Both of them in the house today. Good to have y'all on the spot. Thank you so much for tuning in. Let's go ahead. Hopefully we can have a great show, but we can't do that without, who we got to holler out. Our executive producer, Sister Satana Whitfield, and she says, she's giving everybody the greeting. I'm going to give it back to her, even though I gave it to her earlier. Why? Alaikum assalam rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. You know why? Because you should never be stingy with a greeting. You should never be stingy with a salam. So, sister, thank you so much for participating on the show. So let's get to it. The whole idea of revisiting joy, why we should laugh more. You may not understand this, but we are predisposed physically to laugh more than we are to frown. We're physically disposed to laugh more than to be sad. Now, this is not a thing about mental health and I'm happy, I'm sad. I'm just talking about the general disposition that all of us have. A lot of times I have to step back and think about it. I heard a quote. I think I read it. I heard it from Mark Cuban. He's a billionaire. He's the, owner of the Dallas Mavericks. He owns a couple of things. He's done some really good stuff with pharmaceuticals. He put a quote in a paper one time. And he said, if you have credit card debt, you're not trying to be rich. And I thought about that. I was like, that is a bold statement to say. He said, if you have credit card debt, you're not trying to be rich. And I'm like, what is that? And in further research, I found out I found a interview of him on YouTube, and he talked about how he literally started from nothing, and he talked about the process of learning how to start from nothing. Now, here's the thing: he did it with all a smile and all of that, but he understood that failure was going to be a part of the process, and he grew from failure. He grew from failure. He said, you can have 3 failures. He said, but the 7 successes you're going to have, you're not going to remember the 3 failures. And I went back to his statement about, if you have credit card debt, you're not trying to be rich. And I thought it was kind of an arrogant statement, but he clarified it. He said the thing about credit card debt is that you have this unfortunate, if you will, relationship with credit card companies that know nothing about you. They don't know anything about your character. They don't know anything about your aspirations, your intentions, your skill levels, your talents. He said all it is that these people know that they got you on the hook for a certain amount of money for a certain interest rate. And that's all there is to it. And he said the psychology of it is we sit around worrying about these people who don't worry about us. They have nothing to do about our well-being or our concern. And even to add more to that, my mentor, the great Mr. Dick Gregory, Mr. Gregory, God bless you, may Allah be pleased with you. He said one time to me as a comic, because this is a guy who was making major dollars. He walked away from it. And I asked him about it. I thought it was, I kind of felt like I was out of place, but I said, Mr. Gregory, I mean, you were doing this and you're making all this money and then you lost it and da-da-da, because I'm looking at his books that he had written. And he said, preacher, he said, these white folks got you scared. I said, how so, sir? He said, let me tell you something. He said, all the things you can go to jail for, you can't go to jail for not paying your bills. I said, sir? He said, you can't go to jail or prison for not paying your bills. And I asked him to explain a little bit more. He said, we are conditioned to be conditioned that other people have the controls on, as he said, the volume and the treble and the bass on our well-being, on our music, on our musicality, on our talent, on our spirit. And I was like, well, can you explain that a little bit more? And what he said, and it made sense. He said, if you're sitting around waiting or worrying about these things, you're not pursuing the things that can make you happy. Now, this is a guy, of course, who he dealt with abject poverty, if you will. I mean, the worst. He dealt with abject poverty. But what I appreciated from Mr. Gregory and Mr. Gregory, and I'll share this with you, is he said, us as comedians, we have a very difficult job. And the job is this. The job is to connect with people whom we don't know, from different backgrounds, different cities, different religions, different socioeconomic backgrounds, sexual orientations. It's a hodgepodge. We don't know. He said, but the best of us and the most proficient of us have found a way to frame logic for people. If you ever watch Dave Chappelle do stand up, I'm going to give you guys a great, I shouldn't even say it on the show, but I'm going to say it. I'm going to give you one of his secrets. You ready? Here's one of Dave Chappelle's great secrets. He's a cheater. He's a cheater. He's a cheater in the way all musicians are cheater. He's a cheater in the way that I'm a cheater. We cheat because we know that when we're talking about something, the moment we stop and give that silence for people, we know that we're in a state or a level of position. Because at that point, we're telling you how we think, but we're not telling you how to think. And in that space, there's a little bit of an interchange. There's a respect, if you will. And not just a respect, there's an agreement that I'm not going to do that to you. And for comedy, if you will, just like music, for comedy, if you will, there's a bit of an accord that has to happen. Like I say, why we should laugh more. Here's the reason why we should laugh more. Because the problems that we deal with more than not are multiplier problems. When you're talking about war is a multiplier problem. Poverty is a multiplier problem. Drugs, multiplier problem. A bunch of these things are multiplier problems. If you're a person that can think, I want to say not concentrically, that's not true, but conceptually understanding that all of these things, they have a pin. If you pull it, it drops. And it has a thread. If you look at it, they're tied together. In comedy, all we do is structure thought for people so they can think what they want to think in some regards. In some regards, we want you to think like we think. The true artists, we want to see how you think, how you react. We know how we feel. We want to see how you feel. Sometimes it's great and people love us. Sometimes there's absolute anarchy and riot, and that happens too. Sometimes you're on, sometimes you're off. But the point is, and the challenge is, and the beauty is, it's very organic. And I say this also to make the point, the reason we should laugh more is because laughter is organic. Depression, drugs, alcoholism, these are things that are artificial and they're not organic. Let me back up off of depression. But, depression starts from conditions. You'll have people who have, of course, mental health issues, but a large percentage of us, we don't have mental health issues. We're not able to sometimes properly assess and I want to say interpret that things are around us. And this is coming from me, and I was a school teacher and I dealt with this, but I think the thing that's also important is that, like, when I dealt with kids, they dealt with poverty, they dealt with crime, they dealt with, all kinds of violence, they dealt with inadequate school system, inadequate educational process, if you will, and resources. But the thing that made me they inspired me, let me say that, is that they still came to school with a sense of joy. They were very, very clear about their environments. And if you think about this, when you start backing up more and more, why is it fun to watch a child, a baby? Why is it fun to watch a baby? Because a baby has no idea about nuance. It has no idea about your opinion. It has no idea about your judgment. It has no idea about the inorganic things around them. A baby lives with intention. And that's why I say this is very important. Living with intention. A baby has several mechanisms let you know I'm happy, I'm soiled, I'm hungry, I'm sleepy, I'm sick. And none of them have to do with how you feel. It has to do with how you react. Well, if you start backing out of that, and this is where this whole thing comes in about why we should laugh more. In our basic nature, human nature, even when we get older, we're just the same as the baby. We're just the same as the baby. The only thing is we bring into consideration environment. This person over here, our job over here, statistics over here. So we have a lot more things that don't allow us to get our own human nature. Think about this. And just, you can have the worst day in the world. You can be the sickest that you've been in a long time or the most frustrated that you've been in a long time. But what are you going to do at some point in time during that day? You're going to sleep. You're going to sleep. And you can't make intentions to sleep. The sleep is going to come. Well, why is it we don't, I want to say, hold on to that nature of things and how we deal with people? And this is somewhat how I can agree with Mr. Mark Cuban, whereby, wealth is not going to make you happy. This is the billionaire telling you wealth is not going to make you happy. He said, wealth will make you comfortable. It's not going to necessarily make you happy. And he said, as you look around the world and as we look around the world, we can see the benefits and we can also see the chaos that comes from wealth. There's the other side. There's greed. There's I want to say people coveting this and that, and it's a mental illness sometimes that people have with money. But when you start thinking about why you should laugh more, listen to that question. Just frame that question. Why you should laugh more? Do you have your health? Do you have good family? Do you have righteous children? Got a couple bucks in your pocket? You have food and these are the things that the baby looks for through us. So a baby expects that we're going to give it shelter, we're going to give it food, and sometimes we forget that in our nature, we're still babies, we're just big babies. It's just that our needs are different because we have to connect and engage with the world in a different spot. Okay, I'm going to be back. I went over. Sorry, Satana. I went over. We'll be right back here on the Shout Out Show. Don't move. Hey, babies. Welcome to Radio WCUC, Convenient Urgent Care, home of the smart patient. This is DJ What It Do. You know what time it is. It's the top of the hour, and the request lines are open. You know what you want to hear. I know what you want to hear. Operators are waiting.
I just got to hear Don't Get the COVID.
Don't get the COVID. Put your mask back on. The Delta COVID, more contagious than before. Don't get the COVID. Go on and get the vaccine. You know that it can keep you safe, and your people living up in your space. Don't get the COVID. You need to wash your hands. The Delta COVID is more deadly than before. Don't get the COVID. Go on and get your vaccine. You know that it can keep you from dying. Don't leave your family all alone and crying. Don't get the COVID.
We invite you to join our fight against COVID and against misinformation. It's time to listen to the doctors and trust the science.
When I think of people dying that don't have to die, it makes me sad. Now's the time to be sober. Together we can make this thing over. Let's fight the COVID. Convenient urgent care, home of the smart patient.
All right, we're back. Want to make sure I give a shout out to my little brother, Johnny L. Thomas, better known as JT. What's up going on, beloved? Walaikum assalam rahmatullah barakatuh. Good to see you on the set. So I want to give you a story that kind of sums up joy. It was the end of my junior year, Marquette University, 1987. I wasn't Muslim yet, so I got to frame that story for y'all. I wasn't Muslim yet, and I was going to summer school. I was trying to graduate on time. I had failed a couple classes. Statistics and economics, two horrible classes. Trying to take them during the summer. Essentially, I had a place with my friends, but long story short, my mom didn't even know this. There was a little bit of a drug bust. When I came back off the road from doing this gig, they had the place all wrapped up in tape, and so I couldn't get my stuff. And so I had to lean on my girlfriend at the time. And I was like, can I crash at your spot? She was like, well, I'm getting ready to move home. She said, yeah, but you can crash. And I was like, I tell you what, I will paint the place. And, you know, that way your tenant, when they move in, so basically I'm trying to buy a couple days so I can find another place to stay. Long story short, the tenant got cleared to move in early. So there I am laid out after I finished paint, and this white lady and her daughter, oh my gosh, there's a Negro in here. What's going on? And essentially, I got my stuff. I was like, don't call the cops, lady. I was just painting my stuff. And so essentially, for the first time in my life, I was homeless. Couldn't stay where I was supposed to be staying, and couldn't stay at the place. My girlfriend at the time, shout out to you if you're listening. I couldn't stay at that place. So I was homeless, and I couldn't run in the place where I could really call my parents and tell them, hey, this is what's going on. Because I had kind of told them this was happening. And as a result of being protesting apartheid, I somehow magically lost my student summer job. So I was working downtown at a place called the Grand Avenue Mall at this pastry place, and I worked dishes. It was horrible because it was always crepes and stuff like that. It was a horrible job. So I kept the job, and I couldn't sleep in the mall. And the first night after I got off work, I just went back to campus. I was hoping I might see somebody and, holler at somebody, hey, man, and I found nobody. And so I got all my stuff in this, in this bag. I got a friend of mine. Shout out to Ray. I kept my stuff at Ray's place, but I couldn't stay there because he had like a girlfriend and a half. That's another story. So basically, Ray held my stuff. I was like, I'm gonna pick it up, Ray. I'm just moving. He was like, no problem. Didn't want to tell him the whole story. So I wind up, there's 17th in Wisconsin, there's 9th in Wisconsin, and there's a space just before they changed everything. And it was largely, you had a lot of homeless population around there. So I'm sitting on this bench, and I'm sitting on this bench, and you can tell it's getting cold because, when you've been out a long time, you start getting dew on yourself. You don't move. So I'm getting dew on my head, my hat, and my glasses. And this guy goes, you homeless? I said, technically, yeah. He's like, you ain't been homeless long, huh? I was like, nah. I said, it just happened today. And he says, so what's your plan? And I told him, I said, well, I'm gonna do X, Y, and Z. He starts laughing. I'm like, really? He starts laughing. I'm like, you see me out here doing my glass, you're laughing. I said, why are you laughing? He goes, man, that's the same talk I had when I became homeless. I was like, really? He goes, yeah. He said, so let me figure it out. And he's like, so you didn't tell any of your family? I'm like, no. He said, you didn't really tell your friends, He said, so what is it you want to be in life? I said, I want to be a comedian. He goes, well, you're off to a really good start. And what he said was, he said, you need to appreciate this. He said, you need to appreciate this. He said, for whatever reason, God's put you in this point. He said, you're only going to be homeless, what? He said, yeah, you got a good personality. You're probably going to be homeless day and a half at most. He goes, a lot of us out here, we're out here because we don't have personalities. He said, the luck that has come to us, we either pulled it our way or we ran to it. And I'm like, what are you saying, sir? He said, in some regards, we can't understand the mastery of being happy. And we walked to the liquor store. And he said, why don't you have a drink with me? I said, well, what you drinking? And he had some, I was like, you know what? I only got a certain amount of money. I'm trying to get a place. But I appreciate the wisdom. I'm like, you know what? I'm going to give you, I said, if you give you this money, you're not going to buy alcohol with. He was like, no. And then we went to the store. He's like, give me a bottle of gin. I'm like, damn, you just told me you work. And he offered it to me. And I was like, no, I'm not a gin drinker. And he said, well, here's a change. Now, remember, I got a soda. And we clicked. And I was like, whatever it is it's going to be. I said, this is probably one of the greatest conversations I ever had. And I said, he asked why. I said, because you were honest about me. He said, and I didn't feel like you were judging me. And you put me in a space I'd have to judge you. Now, long story short, of course, I found another place and it worked out. And I actually passed those classes, by the way. But what I remember is just for that moment, I wasn't tied into intention. I was with a homeless guy, and damn it, I was homeless too. And we could care less what the world thought about us. We were dealing with the intentions of how we make ourselves happier, how we get ourselves out of a rut, how we smile. It didn't matter he had dew all over me. It was the fact, brothers and sisters, that we were present. And the reason why you should laugh more is laughter represents that you are present in a situation. That despite everything that's going on, this emotion is coming from you. And an emotion that comes from you like that, that's why people have comedy clubs, not comedy individuals. If it's one person laughing, you might be worried. But that is the whole idea of populating and getting together and have laughing, because this is the thing. This is one of the few times you can be present. Even in religious services, you'll hear a joke and people laugh. At funerals, my Aunt Shirley's funeral, somebody told a joke. It was kind of funny. We all laugh. Because there's something that is divine, there's something that is natural, there's something that is needed about being present in whatever situation you're dealing with. And even Mr. Mark Cuban, who I did disagree with what he said, but he talked about credit taken away from us being present in our own situation. So listen, that is my show for today. I have some lovely food I'm about to be present with, courtesy of Miss Ree. And I appreciate everybody coming on the show. Remember, laugh a little bit more, even if it ain't that funny. I'm Preacher Moss. It's the SOS. I'm going to go eat. Take care. Assalamu alaikum.